just as people start to join in, I thought I would share the ANA Facebook page. This is our contribution to social media. Being a small team, we don't have a lot of time or resource for social media, and so one of the things I've decided to do at ANA is to do one thing well rather than many things sparsely.
Yeah, that's not a bad way. Not a bad way of thinking. A huge time suck, that's for sure.
Yes, so we post every day on Facebook, and just scrolling through a selection of the images here, try and make it relevant for the time of the year, tying into other themes, and use scheduling. So sometimes if I'm just having a bit of a day where I'm feeling creative, often on a Friday afternoon, I'll get out Canva and start doing some posts, and I usually try and schedule maybe 3 weeks at once.
Oh, good.
So that we're always about a month ahead of ourselves, and then it leaves an opportunity as well to throw some extra ones in.
I'll have to send you the link to my 5+ a day spring recipe book, Recipes for One, which is out now.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, we really love sharing things on our Facebook page from other people, and we really encourage people to share our work as well. We know that our work is evidence-based, and so the more correct information that gets out there, the better.
Yeah, exactly, definitely.
Okay, I wonder how we're going for people joining us this morning. Just to let you know, those that are viewing, we're just waiting for a few more people to join in. We do find that these webinars, as we record them, a number of people join in as we go, or possibly watch them a little bit later on as well. So welcome to those of you that have just joined us. We are really thrilled to have the last session with Nikki Bezant today, and just wanted to start off with a poll. Wondered if you could very quickly answer these multiple choice questions, looking at how many of Nikki's communication webinars you've attended, and then what suits you. We're really wanting to find out the best time of the day, lunchtime, early morning, late afternoon, and encourage you throughout today's webinar as well to ask questions, put comments into the questions and answers to give us a bit of a feel for the future of our webinars. We do have another series of webinars that we'll be launching on, we'll be advertising on Friday, starting next Thursday. So we really look forward to you joining those as well. Those ones coming up are around a series of 3 papers that have been written for ANA, looking at the state of nutrition in Aotearoa. So the first one, starting next Thursday, is the authors of the paper, Dr. Leanne Young and Dr. Sally Mackay, having an interview with me about the papers and the key messages. Look at that polling coming in. Most of you have attended one, or one is first, 3 is second. 21% of you have attended all 4 so far. And looking like lunchtime is the big winner. No surprises there, because you're all here. I think it would be really interesting to find out, those of you that aren't here, what is the most successful time as well. So if you've just joined us, this poll is just to capture a bit of information. Nikki, it is my great pleasure to have you here this morning to talk about social media. Kia ora and welcome. And we'll end the polling now so that Nikki can take over. Thank you.
Cool. Now I can close that poll. Oh, yes, there we are. Hi, everybody. Kia ora koutou. That's really cool, that poll scenario. I haven't seen that before. So that's very good functionality, instant audience feedback. I love it. So today is our last webinar on communication, and we have left the most complicated to last, which is social media. And I feel slightly trepidatious about this one because I think there's probably people in the audience who know at least as much about social media, if not more, a lot more than I do. But I'm just going to share again from my perspective, from my experience of what I've learned about social media and ways of communicating with it, assuming that you are not in the situation where you have a social media team or someone in your organization doing your social media for you, because there are social media specialists, of course, out there, of which I am not one, but I do all my own stuff. So let's just start. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. This is about being great at social media. So this is the slide that I have put up that 3/4 of you, from the look of that poll, have already seen. But this is just remember this: all communication is storytelling, and in social media, more than anywhere, it is definitely about storytelling to get that engagement. So just think, what's the story? What's the story that I can tell here? And I'm going to start out with some secrets about social media. And the first secret about social media is that no one really knows how to be great at social media. There are many experts, and I have sat in many seminars and I've heard many experts speak about social media and how to do it and what to do and all of the technicalities. But I think honestly, it's such a movable feast that that anyone who says that they're an expert really, I mean, it's pretty tough to keep up with. So it's kind of like we're all of us who are practicing in social media are kind of just feeling our way and making it up as we go along a little bit. Which isn't to say that there aren't some things that are good to do. So just bear that in mind. There's no real expert. The second secret is that it's not just about followers. So you can have a ton of followers, like, I mean, for example, Healthy Food Guide has got 325,000 Facebook followers and has had up around by those numbers for years. But that doesn't necessarily guarantee any kind of meaningful result. And I know from Healthy Food Guide that only probably less than 1/3 of those are local people. And then the engagement can be very low, even when you've got very high numbers. So my friend Diane there, with her Welcome Back Vintage store on Instagram, where she sells vintage and pre-loved fashion, with her, 7,000 followers, I would suggest that she probably does better for her business from social media with that small following relatively, than Healthy Food Guide with hundreds of thousands of followers. So it's really not about followers. It is about engagement, and it is about using social media to your advantage, to suit your goals. And the secret number 3 that I really want to emphasize is that social media can be a huge waste of time. It can be such a time suck, and it can be ultimately not forwarding your goals in any way. So it's really, really, really important to have goals in mind with your social media strategy. So what are you actually trying to achieve? What are you doing this for? Are you trying to drive traffic to your website? Are you trying to get email signups? Are you trying to promote your particular, to raise awareness for your issue? Are you trying to build awareness of your particular organization? All these things are important. They're all relevant goals, and building followers is a goal too, if that's something that's important to you. But you need to understand what your goal is and keep that in mind with all of your activity. It's very unlikely that you will need to be on all social media platforms, and it's probably, again, that's a pretty good way to waste a lot of time. As you were saying, Alison, it's best for you to just focus on one, maybe Facebook. But you need to understand what your goals are and then work towards those goals. I mean, my goal with social media is to get work, basically. I use mostly Instagram and LinkedIn, and I use that to generate work leads, which I certainly do from both of those platforms. I want people to know that I know what I'm doing. I want to share my current work that I'm doing. I want them to see me out there in the world. I want to raise my profile as a voice in certain areas and make sure that I'm top of mind when they're thinking of someone for a particular type of job or situation or speaking or whatever it is. So that's kind of my goal, and that's what I'm always keeping in mind. And I focus my attention on probably a couple of platforms rather than all of them for that reason. So you need to build an audience, you need to just start. You need to figure out, after you've figured out what your goal is, then you need to start on social media, whatever the platform. Just get in there and get started. And then the key is to keep going. So there's nothing worse than starting all guns blazing and then sort of petering out, and people go to your Facebook page and there's been no post for 6 months, and you know it's very kind of discouraging. So you need to kind of commit to what you're doing, and then really make a commitment, as you have done, Alison, to constantly updating. You know, just keep posting, keep going. But also you can't just put stuff out there. You've actually got to interact. So social media is a two-way conversation, at least. So you've got to interact with others. To build an audience, you need to let people know that you're there. And you can do that very effectively by interacting with other people on the platform. So comment on other people's posts, share other people's things, like other people's material. You need to get out there and particularly comment. And then you need to also be responsive. So if you have got a Facebook page, for example, and you allow messages, then you need to be responsive to those messages. You need to let people know, like we see here, that if they do message you, that you're going to respond. And particularly with a business, that's very important, that you need to be responsive to comments and to messages. So those three things, you've got to just, like, once you're on the track, you've got to keep going. And the great thing about social media is that it's a conversation. And the tricky thing about social media is that it's a conversation. So it's really different from all the other kinds of communication that we've talked about, really, which are pretty much one way. Social media is, you know, it's a multi-person, multi-dimensional conversation. And so that has some real benefits, one of which is that you can really get to know your audience very well, because you can talk to them, you can ask them what they want, what they're interested in, what their pain points are, what they want to know, and what they want from you. So that is brilliant, and there are tons of tools in social media that allow you to do that, not just the general flow of posts, but also, you know, there's polls and there's surveys and all kinds of things. And then you need to kind of also be aware of what's going on in the wider world. You can't just go to your page and do your thing. It's really useful to understand what are the trending topics, what are the wider trends going on, what are the things that people are engaging with all over social media, all over Facebook, for example. So, and that will give you an idea of what the kinds of things are that your audience might be interested in as well. Each social media platform really has a different kind of a vibe and an audience and a focus. Facebook is by far the biggest social media platform in New Zealand. You know, 75% of us, I think, are on there. So, you know, it's really huge still. It is our favourite social media platform, but from a point of view of a practitioner, it is hard. It's getting harder to get engagement, and that's because Facebook is constantly changing its algorithms. And, you know, just recently they've changed it again. So they say, we want you to see more of the things from your friends and family, which is Facebook speak for, we're not going to show you so much from businesses and organizations because we want them to pay to have their stuff seen. So particularly with pages, if you have a Facebook page rather than just you or a group, that only a very small percentage of your followers will see your stuff organically on Facebook. And that's just the way the algorithm works. So you even if you've got an audience of 300,000, you can pretty much know that maybe fewer than half of those people are actually being shown your content on a regular basis in their feed. And that, I'm sure you all know this. I feel like, hopefully I'm not dumbing this down too much, it's not too basic for you, but Facebook in particular, but all social media platforms show you what they think you want to see based on your past interaction. So if I have liked and commented on a lot of posts about gluten-free recipes, then they'll show me more of that kind of stuff. And we do tend to get, you would have heard of the social media bubble or the filter bubble. That's what we are in, all of us, when we go on social media. So we are seeing what the platform wants us to see, and it's showing us that because it thinks it knows based on our behavior. So when you have a page, you can pretty much guarantee that only a very small percentage of your audience is actually seeing your stuff, unless you pay to boost those posts, which is a legitimate thing to do and worth investigating. I'm not going to talk about that today, but you can spend very little money on Facebook and get quite a big reach. I'm terrible on Facebook. I am not particularly active, apart from in closed groups. Personally, I'm not active at all, and I do maintain a professional page on Facebook, but you can see from my insights there that it's pretty poor because I don't put any effort into it. So you need to, particularly with a page, you really need to keep on it and keep pumping stuff out there, and also be prepared to pay if you really want something to be seen. The good things about Facebook, though, is that it can be a really good tool to drive traffic to your website, and it can be good for driving also email signups, which are pretty powerful, I think, still. We forget about email as a tool. I'm not going to talk about that because it's not part of this thing, but it is actually super useful, and Facebook can drive that. And so things on Facebook that are really, really useful and tend to do well, the kind of content that tends to do well, stuff that's shareable. What you really want to aim for with Facebook is your content to be engaged with, so commented, liked, and shared above all. So the more it's shared, the more it's seen. And then Facebook groups, I think, is a really potentially very powerful alternative to a Facebook page, because you're getting a very specific audience, and you're getting a group of people with common interest. And I think the groups can be a lot more powerful than a Facebook page can. And it can be a closed group or an open group. You can turn an open group into a closed group, but you can't I'm told you can't turn a closed group into an open group. So bear that in mind. Closed groups are really brilliant for industry organisations. For example, we have one for Food Writers New Zealand, which when people join and become a member, they can then become part of the closed Facebook group. And that has some value for members, and it also has some value as a place where people feel comfortable to share information that they wouldn't necessarily want to be seen by the wider environment on Facebook. So in a closed or private group, only the people in that group can see and share your content. So you can't go outside the group. So I think that's very powerful. But an open group as well, or a public group, that's what they call it, is again a useful thing, and it can be again a very powerful thing. It's a common interest group of people who are all interested in the same topic or the same kind of content, and anyone can share, and it's just a little bit more targeted than just a general page on Facebook. And I think that the groups going forward, particularly with the algorithm situation, will be the thing that more and more people and organisations will start to use, because I think it's where the real impact can be really, really useful. So explore the groups. That's my advice on Facebook. Instagram is, and I should say about Facebook, the audience for Facebook tends to be older in terms of the rankings of social media. It's wider, so it's younger all the way through to quite a lot older than something like Instagram, for example, which skews a bit younger. So you've got a lot of people under 30 on there. Although I'm a great lover of Instagram, and I'm on there happily at 50. So, and I know my mum's on there as well, and she's 73. So there's a wide range on Instagram, but the skew tends to be younger, and Instagram is all about images. So it's really important, again, here to aim for engagement, because on Instagram you can't really share links. They don't want you to take people off Instagram. It's kind of a closed system, so it's difficult to push people off the platform. Although you can do that again if you've got a business type page. type Instagram account. But really it's about those images that stop you in your scroll, because really Instagram is very much a phone platform, very much aimed at the phone, and you've got to have images that will make people stop scrolling, basically. And so for me, I mean, I post a lot of food. These are just some of my posts that have done reasonably well. You can see that the images, the food images have got to be beautiful, I think. And so that means taking a bit of time and effort over them. We are going to have another session in the new year about photography and styling. So we can talk a lot more about that, because I've got a lot to say about food photography and styling. But just in general, if you're doing food, keep an eye on the lighting. So make sure that you have beautiful natural light if you can. Don't shoot anything in fluorescent lighting or at night time, or don't post. It's just not gonna look good. So if you can do natural daylight and just have it looking nice and bright, that's going to help a lot. And then pay attention to the styling. So just keep an eye on what's in the background. If it's in a restaurant, you know, I mean, I'm always taking pictures of my food in restaurants. I'm not embarrassed about it because everyone does it, but sometimes it can be embarrassing. Just keep an eye on what's around. You don't want half-empty plates in the background. You don't want, you know, clutter. And then make sure that everything's looking just kind of as beautiful as it can be. And then people images are always popular in general. So that one there of me and my nephew was a popular image, and it's just because it's a kind of a resting image, and it's just a happy kind of, you know, it's a shot that people take a second look at. So mix it up and don't just have plates of food is my advice. And in fact, the posts of mine that are the most popular out of all my posts are not even my food posts. They are the posts for me in my homemade dresses or my vintage dresses. So there you go. That tells you something about Instagram. But yeah, it's really about engagement there. So you want people to like, and you want people to comment. You can have a reasonably robust conversation on Instagram, not quite as well as Twitter or Facebook, but it's not bad, and I think it's got a lot of power potentially. It's important with Instagram to just craft your captions. So think about what you're going to say. Generally speaking, it's not worth just posting an image. I mean, there are people who do that, and artists might do that or whatever, if it's just purely about the image. But most of the time, the image is there to stop people, and then what you want to say is in your caption. And so here I am sharing some new work, which I'm very proud of, and trying to make a point as well that people need to support independent publishing. So thinking about what you want to say in your caption, and thinking about it as a piece of writing independently, and using all of the same rules that we used from our writing tips are going to help you there. And then with Instagram, hashtags are important, and hashtags are important because they help people to find your content. So it's a useful thing to do when you're thinking of hashtags. On Instagram, you can see how popular a certain hashtag is, and you really want to go for the hashtags that are the most popular. So when you start to enter a hashtag, you can it'll bring up some suggestions for you, and you can see from that how many other people have used that hashtag. So don't go for a hashtag that 10 people have used. You want to go for a hashtag that 10,000 people have used, because that is a way that people are going to be able to find your content. So you can search Instagram on hashtag, and people often do, and you can set up searches as well on hashtags, so that it'll serve you content with those hashtags as your favorites kind of thing. So it's really worth thinking about the hashtags and investigating them, and coming up with ones that you always put on your posts, so that you get a consistent kind of level of views and viewers, and so that people can find you. So like-minded people are going to find you and then follow you, ideally. So you want your hashtag to draw people to your content, and then hopefully inspire them to interact with you and to follow you. That is an image that I've got. It's a painting I've got on my wall. Actually, not a painting. It's a lino cut of Michael Tuffery. It's hashtag made out of eels, which I thought was really cool. Anyway. And Instagram also has stories, which now you can put onto Facebook as well. And you can, because they're connected, you can post a story on Instagram and it'll go through onto Facebook as well. You can set it up to do that. And stories, again, are pretty powerful. I really like stories because what I tend to do there is put things in my stories that I don't necessarily want to be permanently in my feed. So my feed still looks nice and beautiful and has got those arresting images and it has some kind of consistency to it. But in my stories, I might want to put some more current things. So maybe some more newsy type things or things like this, which is this is a series of stories from recently. And it was an interesting product that I picked up in the supermarket. And so I'm just actually kind of doing a little product review there, just saying, yes, you could cook this yourself or you could buy a bigger can, but this is a really great desk drawer option. You can get the lunch done in 5 minutes or less, which is what I did there with my lunch. And that it's a clever idea. So just kind of, you can use it for all those kinds of things, and you can use it for just incidental things. That stories are only up for 24 hours, so they disappear after that. And so it's a useful way of layering your content. And stories can also drive people to your feed. So they don't click into your feed from your story, but it can be a way of just reminding them about you, and they can certainly click on your name and go to your feed. So it's they're really worth using. And if you haven't played with stories yet, I recommend that you give it a try because it's quite a good way of sharing more. And they're quite fun. So LinkedIn is more a different kind of a social media platform, and it's good for professional networking. It's much more of a business type of setting, as you'll be aware. It is good for that kind of networking people, and again, it's useful to post what you're working on, what you're doing, comments on current kind of businessy situations or interesting topical things that are going on. I mean, here with LinkedIn, I'm not on there every day posting, but it's just kind of useful to sort of keep it current. So if I've done a new piece of work, like these seminars, for example, I'll just try and keep that current so that people know when they go on there what kinds of things I'm working on now. And the things that on LinkedIn that do well can be quite surprising. It was a post that I made earlier in the year, pre-COVID, but it's had like 45,000 views, which astonished me. And it was really it was a positive story. So I think that those kinds of positive stories about topical things are quite good on LinkedIn. So this is about the trial that they did in Countdown, which sadly had to stop, about the plastic-free produce section, which, I mean, a lot of people, it had hundreds of comments as well, this one. So it was just kind of something that really engaged people and got them thinking that it was great. So positive stories, yeah, I think tend to do quite well on LinkedIn. Twitter is another beast again, and there's a fairly low user base of Twitter in New Zealand. It's only something like 8% of the social media, of people, compared to 75% of Facebook. So, but they are pretty noisy, and a lot of the media are on Twitter. So if you want to draw the attention of the media, if that is one of your goals, then Twitter could be a place where you might want to be. You might want to spend some time and post some comment on current events. That tends to be a lot of what's on Twitter. Some kind of political or topical newsy type stuff is always quite good on there. I mean, it can be a place where people do pile on, and it can be a place where there's a lot of abuse, actually. But it also can be quite a good tool if you're looking to raise awareness in political circles and in the media. And then I've just put YouTube and TikTok here. I have nothing to say. I don't know about these platforms. I know nothing about TikTok. So I would say, give it a crack. Suck it and see. It could work for you. You never know. And TikTok, of course, skews really young. But if that is the audience that you're looking to get to, then, maybe it's worth getting on there and having a go. So some content tips. As I said, remember the tips for writing. And here's a post that I just thought was a really, really good piece of writing. And it's, it's just a few words. But this is really, really good. Our volunteers are the heart and soul of our operation. Without these incredibly generous people, we cannot exist. As we grow, so does our need for volunteers. If you're keen to come and join our family, hit the link in our bio. You can come once, regularly, and everything in between. So that there is such a great, concise piece of social media writing. It's saying exactly what it needs to say, right up the top, so it's not burying the lead, remember that one? And it's asking for what it wants. And it's just, and it's also, it's quite heartfelt. It's got quite a nice tone. And the photos, of course, are really charming and lovely. So I just think, remember the tips, and the tips that are really relevant here that we've talked about before. So these will be familiar. Think about the audience. Who are you talking to? And what are the things that are going to engage with them? Think about your voice. So what is your tone? What is your actual voice for your content? And don't lose it in your social media content. And again, don't bury the lead. So it's very, very important in social media in particular, on Facebook, but all platforms really, not to lose the main point of what you want to say. You've got to get that up there in the first couple of lines, because of course on Facebook it's not going to show up otherwise. And secondly, people don't read the whole thing. So if you are doing a very long post, not that many people are going to click more and read the whole thing. Most of what you have to say has to be in those first few lines. Otherwise, there's a very real chance that it won't get read at all. And then again, think of it as storytelling. So just try and make it a story. Every platform, whatever you're using, whatever you decide to use, just try and share as much of your work as you can. So if it's appropriate to share what you are doing, what kind of thing you're doing, get it out there, and think of interesting ways to tell that story. So if you're working on a program in the community, get the faces of the people that you're working with on there. Video in general is going to be and is a really popular type of content on social media, and I think it will continue to be very powerful. So try video if you haven't already, and including the Facebook Live videos and the Instagram Live videos. They are potentially really powerful, and it doesn't have to be hard to do. It's not hard to make a little video. It's really easy to do a live one, because it is just literally live. Just turn on the phone. Do think of everything that you're doing as being viewable on the mobile. So if you haven't already converted your website over to being mobile friendly, then you really, really have to. But I'm assuming that you will have already done that. But just everything, assume that it's going to be consumed on the mobile and not on a website. So check it on a mobile phone and make sure it looks good. And then just think about the big picture too. So think about how your social media represents your brand over time, whether you're an individual like me or whether you're in an organization. Try and keep that in mind too. Does this accurately build and represent my brand? Does it show me how I want to be seen? You'll see often advice on social media along this line, which is be authentic. And the best social media practitioners are the ones that are really authentic. And it drives me kind of nuts, because I think, what does it actually mean? And what is it? And who is really authentic on social media? I mean, this woman, her job is to be on social media. So that is not just a little snap that she's taken, in her lunch hour as she goes to have a workout. That is being professionally styled. It's got professional hair and makeup. It's, the clothing is sponsored. There's been a photo shoot to make that happen. So authenticity is a tricky thing, and I think what they really mean when they say that is actually you want people to connect with you, and I think it's actually about voice. I mean, we've all seen. I mean, this is another funny thing. We've all seen this kind of stuff. This is the influencer. The shot on the left is what was on the Instagram feed, and the shot on the right is how the shot was taken with the Instagram boyfriend hanging off the side of a boat, risking his life. So authenticity is a bit of a nonsense, really. But I think that what that's saying really is that if you are consistent in your voice, and if you are consistent in the kind of content that you're posting, you will build up a connection with your audience over time. People feel like they get to know you, and that really, I think, is what they mean by this be authentic thing. So if you can bring some personality to your social media posts, then that will help people connect with you, and that's a valuable thing, whether you're an organization or whether you're an individual. Whatever the platform that you're using, I think as an extension of that, don't be afraid to show your expertise, and particularly for this group, I think, you know, you are experts in very important areas of health. Don't be afraid to show that, to share the work that you're doing, to share the things that you know, because that's really important as a counterpoint to all the other stuff out there that's not particularly science-based. Don't be afraid to show your personality and to be yourself a little bit. I mean, Claire Turnbull is an ace at this. She should probably be giving this talk because she's much better at, in particular, Facebook than me. But you know, here she is. She's made this yogurt bark. It's not perfect. It doesn't look, you know, Insta perfect. And she talks about how she made it while she had the kids running around fighting. So it's just a little bit of authenticity, and it makes you smile a bit. And that's not a bad thing for people to see you as real people, which we all are, of course. And then don't be afraid either, with your expertise and with your reputation, to weigh in on controversial topics. I really liked Nikki Hart calling Judith Collins out recently, you know, on her ridiculous comments about obesity. You know, I think it's important for your voices to be heard. And I know we've talked about this before in the media one, you know, if you're allowed by your organisation to speak out on controversial topics when that's appropriate, because otherwise, again, the vacuum is going to be filled by people who don't know as much as you. There is a risk, of course, when you put yourself out on social media or in any way in the public eye, that you're going to get trolled and that you're going to get people being, frankly, mean. That's just something that happens. I've never been really badly trolled. I mean, I've been abused and I've been criticised, and that, you know, that hurts. That's for sure. This is, I think that there's just some different ways you can go with that. I mean, you can, the main thing probably is just to ignore it. Ignore them. You have got the power to block and to ban, and use that power for sure. If there's people that are making you feel bad, definitely do that. You can shine light on if people are messaging, if you're getting criticism in private messaging or emails. I think it's perfectly legitimate to bring those into the light and to expose those names of people. And because if they have felt empowered to get in touch with you, then they should be okay with their name being public as much as yours is. So, you know, I have posted critical comments of myself on my social media feeds from time to time. You can do that. You can respond in public if you feel like you want to. You can show humanity, be facts-based, and don't get into, you know, person-to-person abuse. It's tricky. It's a fine line, that one, but it can be done. It may be worth doing. But take a breath and think about it before you just wade in there, because it can again be a total time suck and a waste of time. Or you can do what Magda Szubanski has done here, and I think she is so great because I don't know if you guys saw this. She's fronted a series of ads in Victoria for COVID safety measures, so mask wearing, hand washing, that kind of thing, and following the rules of lockdown. She was the face of a campaign, and she was really viciously attacked and trolled, in fact, by people who were COVID deniers, and a lot of them were followers of Pete Evans, actually, who bizarrely has turned into a kind of a conspiracy theorist COVID denier as well. So he sort of you know, got his followers steamed up, and they did some pretty serious trolling of Magda Szubanski, and she has just come out guns blazing and said, bring it on, basically. And so I think that's another way you can go, and I totally admire her for doing that. But you need to take a breath and have a think about what you're going to do before you get into that. So lastly, I just think things to remember about social media: it's a conversation. It's at least a two-way conversation, usually more. You do tend to get out what you put in. So if you put some effort into it and you are consistent with that effort, then you should get some benefit. You should get some of what you're aiming for in your goals. With you guys being in public health, I think if you don't speak on these topics, then who will? And the answer to that is probably the Pete Evans of the world. So it's really, really important, if you can, to get in there and talk about these things. And also just remember, it's free. Social media is, apart from your time, it costs nothing to give it a crack. So do try it and just experiment and see which platform or platforms works for you. And then, keep going and see what happens, because you just never know. It could be really, really fantastic tool.
Fabulous, Nikki. Such a lot of useful information, and I think today summarised a lot of the other sessions that have occurred. Thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. For those of you that missed some of the other sessions or would like to look at them again, please go to the ANA website where we have uploaded the previous sessions, and you're welcome to watch them at your leisure. Okay, there's a question here that, well, there's actually a few comments from people saying thank you very much, that these sessions have been enjoyed. This question says, how do you strike the balance between keeping social media engagement high but not bombarding followers with constant posts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's not much risk of bombarding people with constant posts, probably because of what I mentioned with the algorithms. Unless you're posting, like every 10 minutes, your followers are not all going to see everything that you post. So I think frequently is not a bad way of going about it, if you can do it. I mean, once a day is great. News organisations obviously post multiple times a day, many times a day. That's a different kettle of fish. But for an individual or for an organisation with a particular message, I think once a day is great. You could even go a couple of times a day if you had the time. And I don't think that's going to make people feel bombarded, because don't forget they're getting a lot of other stuff in their feed too. So chances are they might only see one or two posts that you do in a day.
Thank you. Another question here about where to find the webinars on our website, and we will put a link in the next ANA Focus that goes out. I think you will, so on the home page, and maybe if I just share my screen here, I wonder if I can do that.
Yeah.
How are we going there? Can you see my screen? This is the home page of the ANA website here. There's two options. One is that you head to the professional development here and then scroll down to the ANA events, and that will take you to the past webinar recordings. And we also have on our home page here, this one here, Communication Matters. If you click on this link, that will take you to the recordings as well. So for just for the sake of making it easy, we will make sure that we have a link from the home page in one of these boxes here for you, so that you can find that easily. But do look out in our ANA Focus newsletter as well. If you haven't signed up to the ANA Focus newsletter, head to the top of the ANA website, sign up to the newsletter, and that will take you to any previous information. It will also keep you informed of future webinars that we have. Nikki, it will be really interesting to get you back again at the beginning of the new year to talk more about photos and photography as well. Selecting the right type of illustrations to go with your words is so important. Just checking the questions here. Just some more thank yous or thank yous. I don't think there's any other questions here that we need to cover, but just a reminder to use the question and answer box if you have any questions. We'll continue to keep an eye on that and are very happy to answer your questions later on. We look forward to welcoming you next Thursday to a series of webinars looking at ANA's papers that have been written. And just before we go, I'd like to remind you that we're doing a poll right at this point in time, and hopefully that will come up at any moment, just asking if you're satisfied with the webinars and if you learnt anything, and will you be likely to attend any in the future. This poll is going to be up here for a couple of minutes. So Nikki, it has been our great pleasure to have you on board to share your wisdom with our viewers for the last 4 weeks. I would like to sincerely thank you very much for the time and effort that you've put into preparing these sessions, and wish you I guess it's nearly Christmas, isn't it? Wish you a happy Christmas coming up, and we look forward to meeting you back next year. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure.
Keep those pollings coming in. There's a few more questions there. We'll just have another look at the questions to see if anything else. Being a newbie to health promotion, these webinars have been very beneficial to my learning, and I've learned so much, and I really thank you and look forward to the future webinars. Okay, somebody's still finding it hard to find the webinars that are on our website, so look out in the latest ANA Focus, and we will we'll make that really clear on our website too. The poll is looking fabulous there. Thank you so much for the people that are answering the poll. And I'm going to sign off now, but that poll will be up there for another minute or so. Thank you very much for joining these seminars, and we look forward to seeing you again next Thursday, lunchtime. Goodbye.